Steve Palazzolo is the senior analyst at Pro Football Focus, and he is the host of Pro Football Focus NFL podcast. Go to Pro Football Focus, go to pff.com, use the promo code DRAFT30 for 30% off any PFF subscription. Steve, where are you today on what's going to happen at number 3 overall? You locked in?
You know, I've been believing it's Justin Fields despite all of the smoke. I'm getting talked, out of that by, the more people I speak to. But, I thought it was Fields for a while because I just thought he was the best combination of passing and running and what Kyle Shanahan might want to do. I am starting to believe the Mac Jones hype and that Trey Lance might be number 2. So I'm believing in, it's probably Mac Jones. But deep down, I'm believing that Kyle Shanahan made the decision that it's Justin Fields because I think that's the best selection for the 49ers.
But Justin Fields isn't his kind of quarterback. That's my only thought on that. Do I think Justin Fields is as talented, if not more so? Yes, but does he fit what Kyle Shanahan wants in a quarterback? And considering who he's had, the comp that I got this morning from a source was he's like Matt Ryan.
Yeah, I mean, so when I look at Shanahan historically, right, he has done an incredible job of elevating quarterbacks. I think we all agree on that. Matt Schaub and, but the 2 times that he had kind of a trump card was 2012 with RG3, where they had a rushing attack and the play action game, was multiplied by 10. And then Matt Ryan was the MVP season in 2016. So I'm thinking, okay, he's going to chase one of those 2 things. So you have 2 quarterbacks who can run. They can add that run game component, change the arithmetic at the line of scrimmage. That's what the Shanahans do. The Shanahans are put on the earth to make defenses, not be able to defend the run. And a running quarterback does that. So I'm thinking, okay, that's Justin Fields or it's Trey Lance. And then Fields, he's a little bit slow at times. He holds the ball about 3 seconds per dropback. That's not fast enough. He's got to work a little bit quicker. But the Shanahan offense makes that easier.
Yeah.
And when Fields throws the ball, he's as accurate as any quarterback in the league. So that's why I thought that was the best combination of accuracy, but also that run game component that Fields brings.
The Falcons are interesting here because I don't know if they know who they are right now. Are they a playoff caliber team? Do you add Kyle Pitts? Do you trade Julio Jones? Do you draft Matt Ryan's successor? Where do you think they go?
Yeah, I think the way they structured Matt Ryan's contract, they're pretty much tied to him for 2 more years, which means, okay, they got to make a run. How do you build around Matt Ryan? And I think it's just an odd draft because there might not be a defensive player off the board till 9 or 10. I mean, that hasn't happened since 1999 when it was 7th overall. So the Falcons would love to go defense. I think they'd love to trade down and accumulate draft capital because their defense is just depleted. But Kyle Pitts is really intriguing there, especially if Julio's there or not. There's only 3 teams in the league who have a Kyle Pitts-like player. It's Travis Kelce, George Kittle, and maybe Darren Waller with the Raiders. So you put Kyle Pitts on the field with Julio, with Calvin Ridley. Even if Julio ends up getting traded, Kyle Pitts is an absolute game changer, and that's going to make the next 2 years of Matt Ryan in Atlanta look a lot easier.
But if I'm Atlanta, I'm exploring trading Julio Jones to get a defensive player from somebody in return. I want an impact defensive player for Julio Jones. If I can get that at age 32, that way I can take Kyle Pitts, and I think I've strengthened my team. I've got Pitts on a rookie contract, and he's going to be a game changer. I lose a game changer, but now I get somebody to help us defensively. Because if you draft Kyle Pitts and keep Julio Jones, this just means you lose 42-35.
Yeah, I mean, they're so depleted defensively. They drafted A.J. Terrell, a cornerback, in the first round. They still probably need 2 more corners. The Bucs just re-signed Antonio Brown. You're not keeping up with the Bucs with only 1 half-decent cornerback. So, yeah, I agree. The entire back 7 does need to be overhauled in Atlanta. So, exploring the Julio trade, which would be a post-June 1st trade, I mean, it's a smart move. It's got to be at the right value, though, because there's also an element of it's an offensive league, and the way you win in the NFL, we see this with the Chiefs, the Bucs, the Bills. It's how do you defend this offense? You keep defensive coordinators up at night. How do you defend this? And I'm really intrigued by how do you defend Julio, Calvin Ridley, and Kyle Pitts all at the same time?
Best rosters heading into the draft. Give me the top 2 or 3.
Yeah, I mean, I think you look at the entire Final Four last year. Of course, the Bucs and the Chiefs are both in there. The Bucs they brought everybody back. It has to be them. The Chiefs are up there. The Bills and the Packers are all up there. But we just did a ranking over at PFF.com a couple weeks ago, and the Cleveland Browns were number 2. I mean, this is The draft's in Cleveland. They're picking late in the first round.
So this is talent. This is strictly talent on the roster. The Browns are the second most talented team in the NFL.
Yeah, when you look up and down as far as there's no real glaring holes, and where there is a hole, it might be linebacker, which, it's less important in today's NFL unless you have a great one. It's just a tough position to play. So the Browns have incredible depth. They have a good quarterback in Baker Mayfield. So they actually go into the draft without any glaring needs, and they could, pick the best players for their roster.
Where do you have Justin Fields going?
I mean, deep down, I was thinking, okay, the Niners they're not really putting all this stuff out. Maybe they love Justin Fields. They want to just make sure the Jets don't take him. If he doesn't go to the Niners at 3, which has been my inkling, I think Denver's in play at 9. I think Detroit is a wild card at 7 because they're just in the middle of a rebuild. It's a 6-year contract for Dan Campbell and the new regime there. They don't have to force a quarterback, but man, if Justin Fields is there, you say, okay, Justin Fields, you're coming in, you're sitting behind Jared Goff, you're going to be our guy going forward. I think the Lions at 7, the Broncos at 9, and then the Patriots, of course, at 15. It's just been a different offseason for the Patriots, right? The most aggressive offseason in New England Patriots history. They could put the cherry on top by trading up to go get a Justin Fields and have him be the successor to Cam Newton.
Steve Palazzolo is the senior analyst at Pro Football Focus, host of the PFF NFL podcast. First running back off the board is who and goes where?
I'm thinking Najee Harris from Alabama. I'm looking at Miami at 18 and then Pittsburgh at 24. I definitely think Pittsburgh's in the market there for Najee. I think, I'm not a big believer in running backs going in the first round. The only team I think teams that can handle it might be the Bills or the Bucs because their roster strength is so good. But I think Miami and Pittsburgh might be in play there for Najee.
If Christian McCaffrey was coming out in this draft, where would he go?
He'd probably be the top running back on the board. He still might go top 15. Again, all of our data and analysis says, look, the running back is by far just the cherry on the top of a perfect roster. And it's not the guy that you want to feature in the first round. And even if you don't have a ton of needs, like some of these other teams we're talking about, needs change daily. Look at the Chiefs last year, right? They grabbed the running back. Now they need 2 tackles, coming into this offseason. So McCaffrey would probably be the top running back off the board. He'd still probably go top 15, but I think the league is getting a little bit smarter and saying, look, the running back is the most interchangeable position in the NFL, even with the great Christian McCaffrey. So I think they're starting to slide a little bit more than they have in recent years.
Does the data show that you shouldn't re-sign a running back?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, part of it's the interchangeability. The other part is it's not tough to identify differences in talents. Christian McCaffrey's awesome. Zeke Elliott's awesome. Those guys are great. But the difference in talent level doesn't show up in production on the field. So essentially, rushing production, the number one driver is run blocking or what the defense is doing, or simply, I mentioned what Shanahan does, right? He just counts the box, right? It says, look, there's 7 guys in the box. I got 8 blockers. We're winning. So that's the biggest issue. And trying to re-sign a running back and paying him a big deal almost never pays off. We'll see if Derrick Henry, Dalvin Cook, they're trying to buck that trend. It's just not a good track record.
If I gave you all the players in the first round and I got all the other rounds and we totaled up the number of Pro Bowl appearances, would you stay with the first round talent or would you take everybody else in the draft?
In this particular draft or in general?
This particular draft.
Yeah, I think I'd take the first rounders. I think there's a little bit more certainty in the first round. I think even historically you get that. The NFL's not bad at drafting. They're pretty good at picking the best players. It is interesting, though, if you go back 3 or 4 years and you say, okay, who are the best 32 players in a given draft? You will have some late rounders and some undrafted free agents and all that. But for the most part, you do generally get your best players in the first round. So I'll take round 1.
Least talented team in the NFL is who?
So the Lions and Texans are both in the mix. The Lions have just, gutted the entire roster. The Texans have been gutting their roster unintentionally the last couple of years, trying to build around Deshaun Watson, making some mistakes. And as of right now, the Jaguars, before they draft Trevor Lawrence, have some work to do. But I look at the Lions probably as that team that is just in full rebuild mode, and they have needs all over the place. So I'd say the Lions.
Give me a draft prediction that on Friday I give you credit for. I call you or I make fun of you. But give me a draft prediction, not an obvious one, that this audience will take into the draft.
All right, so I'm going to, first it'd be Justin Fields to the Niners.
Okay.
Let me stick with it.
Okay.
Fields to the Niners at 3.
Stay with it, Steve. Don't waver off it just because you have experts who are saying this or scouts or insiders, whatever. Stay with it if you're committed. What's the other one?
I've been trying to get into Kyle Shanahan's head this entire time, and I still think his head would move toward Justin Fields being the guy. But I'll say Justin Fields. I'll also say maybe there's less quarterback movement than we think. You've got those three locked in, or there'll be three quarterbacks at the top. If Fields is the third quarterback, as I predicted, I don't know if there's as much of a market for a Mac Jones or even a Trey Lance as far as trade ups go. You might see those guys drop a little bit. If it is Mac Jones at 3, I do think Justin Fields becomes coveted, though, and there'll be some movement in the top 10.
Good to talk to you as always, Steve. Have fun tomorrow night. Thank you.
Sounds great. Thanks, Dan.
Steve Palazzolo.